ਮੀਡੀਆ ਵੇਸ ਦੇ ਪਲੇਟਫਾਰਮ ਤੋਂ ਜੀ ਪ੍ਰੋਗਰਾਮ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਆਪ ਸਭ ਦਾ ਨਿੱਘਾ ਸਵਾਗਤ ਹੈ ਜੀ ਆਇਆਂ ਨੂੰ। ਇਸ ਪ੍ਰੋਗਰਾਮ ਦੇ ਅੰਤਰਗਤ ਲੇਟੈਸਟ ਜਾਣਕਾਰੀਆਂ ਸਾਡੇ ਖੇਤਰੀ ਇਲਾਕੇ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਜਿਹੜੀਆਂ ਸੰਬੰਧਿਤ ਨੇ ਉਹ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਸਾਰਿਆਂ ਨਾਲ ਅਸੀਂ ਸਾਂਝੀਆਂ ਕਰਦੇ ਹਾਂ। ਔਰ ਯਾਦ ਰਹੇ ਅੱਜ ਵੀ ਪ੍ਰੋਗਰਾਮ ਦੇ ਅੰਤਰਗਤ ਇਸੇ ਵਿਚਾਰ ਦੇ ਅੰਤਰਗਤ ਆਪ ਸਭ ਨਾਲ ਸਾਂਝ ਪਾਈ ਜਾਏਗੀ। ਉਹ ਮਨ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਕਿ ਕਿਸੇ ਵੀ ਕਾਰਨ ਕਰਕੇ ਸਾਡੇ ਖੇਤਰੀ ਇਲਾਕੇ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਹਨ ਥੋੜ੍ਹੇ ਸਮੇਂ ਲਈ ਜਾਂ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਸਮੇਂ ਲਈ, ਔਰ ਉਹ ਇੱਥੋਂ ਦੇ ਹਾਲਾਤਾਂ ਬਾਰੇ ਔਰ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਲੇਟੈਸਟ ਜਾਣਕਾਰੀਆਂ ਜੋ ਕਿ ਸਾਡੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਅਫੈਕਟ ਕਰ ਰਹੀਆਂ ਨੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਜਾਣਕਾਰੀ ਮੀਡੀਆ ਵੇਸ ਦੇ ਪਲੇਟਫਾਰਮ ਤੋਂ ਪ੍ਰਸਾਰਿਤ ਕੀਤੀ ਜਾਂਦੀ ਹੈ ਔਰ ਉਹ ਪ੍ਰਾਪਤ ਕਰਦੇ ਹਨ। ਇੱਕੋ ਮਸਲਾ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਤਕਰੀਬਨ 2 ਹਫ਼ਤਿਆਂ ਤੋਂ ਨਿਰੰਤਰ ਸਾਰੇ ਭਾਰਤੀ ਮੂਲ ਦੇ ਕੈਨੇਡੀਅਨਸ ਨੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਪ੍ਰਭਾਵਿਤ ਹੈ, ਉਸ ਦੇ ਮੁਤਲਕ ਅੱਜ ਦੇ ਪ੍ਰੋਗਰਾਮ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਜਾਣਕਾਰੀਆਂ ਸਾਂਝੀਆਂ ਕਰਾਂਗੇ। ਮਤਲਬ ਭਾਰਤ ਅਤੇ ਕੈਨੇਡਾ ਦੇ ਦਰਮਿਆਨ ਚੱਲ ਰਹੀ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਖਿੱਚੋਤਾਣ ਆ ਉਸ ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਲੇਟੈਸਟ ਅਪਡੇਟ ਕੀ ਹੈ ਉਸ ਦੇ ਮੁਤਲਕ ਅੱਜ ਦੇ ਪ੍ਰੋਗਰਾਮ ਦੇ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਸਾਰਿਆਂ ਨਾਲ ਸਾਂਝ ਪਾਵਾਂਗੇ ਔਰ ਉਮੀਦ ਕਰਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਕਿ ਪ੍ਰੋਗਰਾਮ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ जुड़े रहोगे। जी आशा है जी।
जितने भी लोग इस समय हमारे साथ प्रोग्राम में शामिल हैं, आप सभी को हम तहे दिल से शुक्रिया अदा कर रहे हैं और आई होप कि आप लोग हमारे ऐप के ज़रिए प्रोग्राम सुन रहे हैं। अगर ऐप आपने अभी तक डाउनलोड नहीं किया है तो आप जाकर ऐप स्टोर में मीडिया वेव्स लाइव डाउनलोड कर लीजिए ऐप और आप हमारे साथ दिन के 24 घंटे हफ्ते के 7 दिन शामिल रहेंगे। इसके साथ साथ पीपल हु आर विद अस ऑन 106.9 FM आप सभी को भी स्वागत कर रही हैं। जिस तरह से हमने पहले ही आपको बताया कि सिचुएशन जो है भारत और कनाडा के दरमियान कुछ सही नहीं हो रहे हैं, बट वी आर स्टिल सीइंग और हियरिंग कि थिंग्स आर गोइंग इन अ डिफरेंट डायरेक्शन। आज सुबह जो खबर हमने हिंदुस्तान टाइम्स से सुनी है उसके बारे में हम ज़रूर आपके साथ डिस्कस करना चाहते हैं और कहते कि इंडिया कनाडा न्यूज़ जो है भारत के और कनाडा का जो खबर है हिंदुस्तान टाइम्स में, not looking to escalate situation, says Trudeau. Our Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau alleged India's role behind the killing of Khalistani terrorist Hardeep Singh Nijjar. The diplomatic relationship between India and Canada was worsened in the past few weeks after Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau alleged that the Indian government could be behind the killing of Khalistani terrorist Hardeep Singh Nijjar, who was shot dead outside at a parking lot outside a Gurdwara in Canada's Surrey, British Columbia on June 18. India has outrightly rejected the claim, calling it absurd and politically motivated. Amid the tensions, both sides expelled diplomats while India stopped processing visa applications by Canadians. On last Tuesday, the Indian government reportedly told Canada to withdraw dozens of diplomats from the country. According to the report, Ottawa has been told by New Delhi that it must repatriate roughly 40 diplomats by October the 10th. Canada's foreign minister said the government is still in discussions with India about Canada's diplomatic presence in the country, as a dispute rages over murder of Sikh separatist leader in a Vancouver suburb. Melanie Joly said yesterday that Canada is in constant cooperation and dialogue with India after reports that Canada has been instructed to reduce the number of diplomats by 2/3. A move that would send dozens of staff home and significantly reduce its contingent in New Delhi. In moments of tensions, because indeed there are tensions between both our governments, more than ever it's important that diplomats be on the ground, and that's why we believe in the importance of having a strong diplomatic footprint in India, she said in Ottawa. That being said, we are going through an extremely challenging time with India right now. Prime Minister Trudeau was quoted as saying by the Canadian newspaper, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken met last week with India's foreign minister amid the simmering row between New Delhi and Ottawa. OUS official said topic was raised. U.S. officials have acknowledged that the fallout from the allegations, which they took seriously, could have a profound impact on relations with India. but have been careful not to cast blame in the killing of Niger. There is a priority among the allies to bolster ties with India as a counterweight to Beijing's rising power and assertiveness. Reality is, we need to find pathways of de escalation, and perhaps Canada's allies can be helpful here, said Bruce Heyman, a U.S. ambassador to Canada during the Obama administration. Financial Times, citing people familiar with Indian demands, said India had threatened to revoke the diplomatic immunity of those diplomats told to leave who remained after October 10th. Canada has 62 diplomats in India, and India had said that the total should be reduced by 41, the newspaper said. Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau declined to confirm the report of the explosions, but said Ottawa was looking to escalate the dispute. We want to be on the ground in India to help Canadian families there, said Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau stated that Canada has no intention of escalating the situation with India and will maintain responsible and constructive engagement with New Delhi. Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau stood up in Parliament last month and said there were credible allegations of Indian involvement in the slaying of Hardeep Singh Nijjar, a 45-year-old Sikh leader who was killed by masked gunmen in June in Surrey, outside Vancouver. For years, India has said Nijjar, a Canadian citizen born in India, has links to terrorism and allegation. Nijjar denied. India has told Canada to remove 41 of its 62 diplomats in the country, and official familiar with the matter said, ramping up a confrontation between the two countries over Canadian accusations that India may have been involved in the killing of Sikh separatist leader in suburban Vancouver. The official spoke on condition of anonymity, as they were not authorized to speak publicly ahead of public reaction from the Canadian government later Tuesday. The official confirmed an earlier report from the Financial Times. Here's a list of diplomatic and trade actions taken by the two nations so far. Canada paused talks on a proposed trade treaty with India, a Canadian official said on September 1st, an unexpected move that came about 3 months after both countries said they planned to seal an initial pact this year. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi conveyed strong concerns about Sikh separatist protests in Canada to Prime Minister Justin Trudeau on the sidelines of a G20 summit in New Delhi on September 10th. Canada postponed a trade mission to India planned for October, led by the Trade Minister Mary Nag. A spokesperson halt trade treaty talks and postponed the mission was due to concerns surrounding the murder, a Canadian source told Reuters. Trudeau told Parliament on September 18 that Canada was actively pursuing credible allegations linking Indian government agents to the killing of Nijjar, a Canadian citizen campaigning for the creation of independent Sikh homeland carved out of India. India dismissed Trudeau's assertions as absurd on September 19. Both countries expelled a diplomat in tit-for-tat moves with Canada, throwing out India's top intelligence officer in the country while India expelled his Canadian counterpart. India urged its citizens in Canada to exercise caution in a statement on September 20th at the US, Australia, and Britain pressed concerns about the issue. India's JSW Steel Limited is slowing down in processes to buy a stake in the steel-making coal unit of Canada's Teck Resources. September 21st, citing a source close to the discussions. India suspended issuing new visas for Canadians on September 22nd and asked Ottawa to reduce its diplomatic presence in India. Fertilizer importer Indian Potash said on September 22nd that it does not expect supplies of Canadian potash to be affected by the row, and it hopes to extend a contract with Canadian supplier Canpotex beyond the end of September. Canada is one of the key suppliers of potash to India. Canadian lentil sales to India slowed after tensions rose between the two nations. Industry sources in both countries, Canada is India's main import sources of lentils, a protein-rich staple. India's steel secretary told reporters on September 28 that Indian exports to Canada were marginal and have not been affected by the diplomatic row. Canada's House of Commons on Tuesday will vote to select a new speaker after the previous one quit along following an uproar for unknowingly inviting a former Nazi soldier to special parliamentary session in honor of Ukraine President Volodymyr Zelensky. Former Speaker Anthony Rota, a member of the governing Liberal Party, resigned last week. He took full responsibility for inviting Yaroslav Hanka, 98, a Polish-born Ukrainian who served in one of Adolf Hitler's Waffen SS units during the World War II, to the House when Zelensky spoke on September 22nd. The Biden administration has engaged with the Indian government on a number of occasions, urging them to cooperate with Canada and its investigations into the death of Khalistani separatists, U.S. State Department officials said. Bilateral ties between India and Canada came under severe strain following Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's allegations of potential involvement of Indian agents in the killing of Hardeep Singh Nijjar in British Columbia in June. India has rejected the allegations as absurd and motivated and expelled a senior Canadian diplomat in a tit-for-tat move to Ottawa's expulsion of an Indian official over the case. A resident of Duneka village in Punjab's Moga district, Sukhdool 40, was shot dead in the Canadian city of Winnipeg by unidentified people, with officials terming it a result of inter-gang rivalry. Sudul's killings came amidst diplomatic tensions between India and Canada over the killing of Khalistani extremist Hardeep Singh Nijjar by unidentified assailants in British Columbia's Surrey in June of 2023. India's wanted gangster Sukhdool Singh was fatally shot last month in the Northwest Territories. Winnipeg City in Canada was associated with terrorist entities like designated Khalistani terrorist Arsh Dalla for acquiring sophisticated weapons to run his syndicate. India's federal probe agency, National Investigation Agency NIA, had mentioned the fact in one of its charges sheets filed in a special court in Delhi in March this year, naming Sukhdool and 21 others. As per the charge sheet, Sukhdool was also went by the alias Sukh Duneke and was known as a notorious criminal in India for allegedly organizing hits on rival gang members there. And a few gang members such as Gaurav Patel fled India and ran their syndicate from abroad. Canadian MP Kevin Vuong on Monday asked the Justin Trudeau government to provide evidence backing its allegation that the Indian government was possibly behind the killing of Khalistani terrorist Hardeep Singh Nijjar on its soil. A U.S. State Department official said that the Biden administration has urged India to cooperate with Canada in its investigations into the death of Khalistani terrorist Hardeep Singh Nijjar. We have engaged with the Indian government on a number of occasions to urge them to cooperate with Canada's investigation. The secretary had an opportunity to do that in his meetings with the foreign minister on Friday, the officials said. India told Canada to withdraw dozens of diplomats from the country amid the row over the killing of Khalistani terrorist Hardeep Singh Nijjar. The Financial Times reported, according to the report, Ottawa has been told by New Delhi that it must repatriate roughly 40 diplomats by October 10th. So far, this is the story we are hearing. और इसके साथ साथ हम ये भी आपको बता दें कि what our city news, हमारे जो community news है यहाँ पर वैंकूवर में city news, वो क्या कह रहे हैं इस बारे में. India tells Canada to remove 41 of its 62 diplomats in the country, officials says. India has told Canada to remove 41 of its 62 diplomats in the country. An official familiar with the matter said Tuesday, ramping up a confrontation between the two countries over Canadian accusations that India may have been involved in the killing of Sikh separatist leader in suburban Vancouver. The official spoke on condition of anonymity as they were not authorized to speak publicly ahead of public reaction from the Canadian government later Tuesday. The official confirmed an earlier report from the Financial Times. India's Minister of External Affairs declined comment. Trudeau would not confirm the reports, nor did he sound inclined to acquiesce to India's request. Obviously, we are going through an extremely challenging time with India right now, Trudeau said on his way to a caucus meeting on Parliament Hill. That's why it's so important for us to have diplomats on the ground working with the Indian government there to support Canadians and Canadian families. Canada, he continued, is taking this extremely seriously, but we are going to continue to engage responsibly and constructively with the government of India. In moments of tension, because indeed there are tensions between both our governments, more than ever it's important that diplomats be on the ground, Jolie said. That's why we believe in the importance of having strong diplomatic footprint in India. That being said, we are in ongoing conversations with the Indian government. Trudeau stood up in Parliament last month and said there were credible allegations of Indian involvement in the slaying of Hardeep Singh Nijjar, a 45-year-old Sikh leader who was killed by the masked gunman in June in Surrey. Outside Vancouver, for years, India has said Nijjar, a Canadian citizen born in India, has links to terrorism, an allegation Nijjar denied. Arranging the killing of a Canadian citizen in Canada, home to nearly 2 million people of Indian descent, would be unprecedented. India has accused Canada for years of giving free rein to Sikh separatists, including Nijjar. India has also cancelled visa for Canadians. Canada has not retailed for that. India also previously expelled a senior Canadian diplomat after Canada expelled a senior Indian diplomat. The allegations of India's involvement in the killing is based in part of the surveillance of Indian diplomats in Canada, including intelligence provided by a major ally, a separate Canadian official previously told the Associated Press. The official said the communication involved Indian officials and Indian diplomats in Canada, and that some of the intelligence was provided by a member of the Five Eyes Intelligence Sharing Alliance, which includes the United States, Britain, Australia, and New Zealand, in addition to Canada. The official spoke on condition of anonymity because of not being authorized to discuss the matter publicly. The latest expulsions by India have escalated tensions between the countries. Trudeau has frosty encounters with Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi during this month's group of 20 meeting in New Delhi, and a few days later Canada cancelled a trade mission to India planned for the fall. Nijjar was a leader in what remains of a one-strong movement to create an independent Sikh homeland known as Khalistan. A bloody, decade-long Sikh insurgency shook North India in the 1970s and 1980s until it was crushed in a government crackdown in which thousands of people were killed, including prominent Sikh leaders. The Khalistan movement has lost much of its political power but still has supporters in the Indian state of Punjab, as well as in the sizable overseas Sikh diaspora. While the active insurgency ended years ago, the Indian government has warned repeatedly that Sikh separatists were trying to make a comeback. So this is our Canadian news, which I just have told you about City News here in Vancouver. But in Sare Stories ke behind, there's another thing that we have to look into, and that is the accusation of our Surrey Newton MP, Sukh Taliwal. Let's hear what Sukh Taliwal says about this.
Hardeep Nijjar's son has said that the CSIS was in touch with Mr. Nijjar and they were going to meet him 2 days after also, and 6 days before his death they had met him. So are you accepting that the Canadian intelligence failed to protect Mr. Nijjar?
It's not about failing to protect Mr. Nijjar. It is the thing that is right now is that the Indian agents
No, my
were
question.
involved
My
in
question then,
killing
sir.
a Canadian on Canadian.
My question, sir, is that
No,
somebody
but
who's
why don't we come
proscribed a
back to your
terrorist in
stand?
2020, somebody who had a
But I
red
mean,
corner notice against him, the Canadian
because
intelligence
you are-
was actually going to protect him. So Canadian
are
government,
going-
you are
listen
saying
to
as an
me.
MP that they were officially
you-
protecting Hardeep Nijjar.
No, it didn't. He didn't get any cover, but he was informed because I'm not privy to that information because nobody told me. Neither Mr. Nijjar told me, nor the intelligence agencies had told me that they have
No,
meetings.
but
If
Mr.
they would
Nijjar's
have
son
told
has
me-
made this claim, sir. Mr. Nijjar's son has openly made this claim. sir.
I'm telling you right now, it's not only his son. Right now, the Prime Minister of Canada has made a claim.
No, but
that
he's made a
he-
claim. Where is the evidence, sir? You just asked India to provide evidence against Arshdeep Dalla and Goldie Brar. So is
evidence
there
will
evidence?
come. Listen to me. Evidence will come in the courts in a due process.
So that was Mr. Sukh Taliwal. Do you believe he's taken the right stand in the interest of peace against extremism, against gangsters, against warlords, against those who are orchestrating the secession or balkanization of yet another democracy from Canadian soil? We leave that for you to decide. Let's also ask Puneet Sahni, who's joining us this evening, and Ramneek Singh Mann. Namaste, Sat Sri Akal. Thank you very much. Jai Hind, gentlemen. Let me first ask you, Ramneek Mann, how would you look at what Mr. Sukh Dhaliwal has said? Has he inadvertently accepted that the Canadian authorities were openly shielding a wanted man?
You know, there's liar written all over his face. When he speaks, his utterances are all lies. Let me just get into the background of Sukh Dhaliwal and let's try and get the credibility of this man right. Okay, so Sukh Dhaliwal is a 4 or 5 times MP from the Liberal Party. He's never been made a minister. Why is he never been made a minister? Is because he's involved in tax frauds. He has got cases of tax fraud against him. That is one. Number two, I will not name the immigration company, but there is a large India-based immigration company, the owner of which is an Indian or from a person of Indian origin. He's a partner in that company. Now there is a clear quid pro quo between the government, the Liberal government officials and this immigration company, which Sukh Dhaliwal is a partner of. There is millions and millions of dollars at stake. He's the recipient and beneficiary of millions of dollars. So he is getting those illegal gratifications in the shape of the money being paid by Indian citizens coming into Canada and trying to get settled there, one of whom was Ravi Sharma, alias Hardeep Nijjar, alias LGBTQ, alias Pradhan of a Gurdwara. I don't know what all you can call him. Another thing is that this Sukh Dhaliwal stood for Mayor Surrey. He stood 5th. He came 5th. That is his popularity. And when he found that he's getting down the ground and he's going to be finished, that is when he started getting very close and cozy with the Khalistanis. He has always been into illegal trade, but he got very close to the Khalistanis. And after I'm telling you very frankly, and this is verifiable, after the death of Hardeep Nijjar, he is now planting his own people, since it is his constituency, Surrey. He's trying to get people of his own interest as the people who would administer Guru Nanak Sikh Temple, Surrey, the Gurdwara he did not name or he mentioned clearly. So these are his credentials. He is known as Pog Mantri in Canada. This is how it is called. He is very closely associated with the Pakistan ISI. He regularly attends Pakistan High Commission meetings and parties in Canada. He is a regular visitor to Pakistan at least 2 or 3 times in a year. These are the credentials of Sukh Dhaliwal. And he says he doesn't trust the Indian government. Sukh Dhaliwal, people don't trust you. They don't want you to be their mayor. You stood 5th when they came out to elect and vote for the mayor. They voted you at the 5th position. That is your credibility amongst your own people.
So you're
I mean, before he could make claims,
Jay, please come.
Anand, before he could make claims on India or Indian government, or the ridiculous and absurd comments of the Prime Minister of Canada is trying to support or justify, he's got no 2 feet to stand on when it comes to evidences. India has given 11 demarches. India has given dossiers after dossiers of evidences. India has been telling the Canadian authorities that designated terrorists of India, Inam Yafta Mujrim of India, murderers, gangsters, heinous criminals are your honorable citizens. How is that even possible? And when he says that, well, people have a right to peacefully protest and peacefully demand, where was the peace? These people are murderers, designated terrorists. They are accused in bomb blast cases.
So that's the.
Do you think that is peaceful?
That's exactly the question that we kept asking him again and again. And he said he's not against assaulting or the sovereignty of a nation, but then he qualified it by saying if the protests are peaceful. So he never clearly answered that question, and neither did he answer this question that whether or not he supports or opposes this entire Khalistani gang.
Anand,
Ramneek ji, if I may just go across to Puneet Sahni and then come back to you, Ramneek ji. Yes,
Okay.
yes, Puneet Sahni.
So, okay, Anand, let's just go by the facts. So, Ramneek bhai told a lot, but who is Sukh Dhaliwal? So, at that time, one of the biggest gangsters, his name was Ranjit Singh Cheema. And he was caught importing 200 kilos of heroin from Pakistan. And he was fighting extradition. He didn't want to go to, and one of the people writing his letter was this Sukh Taliwal. So he is involved in gun running and drug running. And he wrote, and that he is such a liar and a snake that he's like, oh, he's a person. That person didn't even live in this constituency. And that the brave journalist who broke this thing, her name is Kim Bolan. She used to write on Khalistan. So there were two journalists, Terry Molesky and Kim Bolan. But she was harassed so much, and she has basically give up on Khalistan. So they are thugs, and they threatened. And Anandji, like to go back a point. Now we are talking about Nijjar was on this. Actually, again, half of the slap should be on our face. So why is Sukh Taliwal? Who removed Sukh Taliwal from the blacklist? It was this government. Sukh Taliwal used to be on a blacklist himself because he was involved in drug running. He was with Khalistanis. He was in all kind of things. And they were like, he's reformed. And as soon as this, what has he said in the Canadian Parliament? This so-called democracy, I don't have any faith. This is the reform. These are snakes. They can never be reformed. And I tell you one thing. The other thing he was saying, somebody has come and killed on Canadian soil a Canadian resident, and an Indian agent has killed him. And what is the evidence? Evidence is Jagmeet Singh and all this thing. Nothing. Just we have to believe them. But I actually display, and you also I think retweeted it. The Gurdwara from which Mrs. Gandhi's float was taken. It is Guru Nanak Mission Center, Toronto. From that, I have taken out a magazine and I have shown it to you. In that magazine, they are saying there is some Surinder Singh Shindar. Who was this? And in that magazine, they say this guy, he was wanted in India by the NIA. He escaped to Canada. Then he went to India and did some killings. And they tell the name of the person they have killed. And then he goes back to Canada. And then he comes to India and then he does some killings. And they tell the name of the person he has killed. And then he goes back to Canada. And the third time he comes to India, he's killed by the police. And this person is a great martyr. And this is not some, credible allegation. This is not some Jagmeet Singh or Ramneek Wan or Puneet Sani saying this. This is a personal testimony of that person, of that Gurdwara. So they are interfering in our relation. They are killing Indian residents, Indian citizens in India. And these people are being celebrated in Gurdwara. So what nonsense is this Sukh Taliwal speaking?
Ramneek Man, final minute to you. Ji.
Well, yeah, okay. So Anand, my point is, when it comes to mutual relations between two countries, you need to take into consideration that this man is a MP of a ruling party. Imagine this were a BJP MP in India. How would the backlash come through? Imagine this guy coming out and telling openly that he does not trust the Indian government. Let me take you backwards a little. There was a Kanishka air bombing in which 329 people lost their lives, 280 of which were Canadian citizens. Where is the judicial justice system? Where is the justice delivery system of Canada? Nothing has happened. No one has been punished for that crime. Everyone involved, a plumber per se, using an AK-47 assault rifle, setting up a training camp in Canada, training Indian citizens or people of Indian origin who would come back to India and get involved into assassinations and killings. He would visit Pakistan regularly. I mean, how can you call such people who are designated terrorists of a country as honorable citizens of your country? And then, lo and behold, the Prime Minister of Canada on the floor of the Parliament is lying.
Yeah,
He's lying through his teeth.
this is where the
And
issue is. The issue is which Canadian citizen they are actually choosing to stand up for. Ramneek Man and Puneet Sani, I've run out of time. We'll carry forward this conversation come Tuesday with you, gentlemen. With that, we call it a wrap on this edition of The Right Side.
That was CNN News 18 coverage. और इस कवरेज में बहुत कुछ हमारे न्यूटन के एमपी सुख तालीवाल पर कहा गया. And when we look at the big picture situation between Canada and India, it's not only about terrorists. It's not only about murder. It's not only about investigation. But there's a lot about our political system. It's about politics. It's about who we trust as a politician. So these things are coming out, which are latest situation between Canada and India. और ये सारी बातें जब हम सुनते हैं एज एक आम पर्सन जो है उनका कहना यही है कि किसी ने पैसे की वजह से, किसी ने अपने मुफाद की वजह से ये सिचुएशन को वर्स कर रहे हैं। पर कौन इसमें नुकसान उठा रहे हैं? वो है आम जनता। आम जनता, जो लोग इंडिया जाना चाहते हैं, जिन्होंने इंडिया में शादी ब्याह के डेट्स रखे हुए थे, जिनको इंडिया में कोई काम थी, कोई मेडिकल रीज़न था, किसी की कोई सर्जरी बुक्ड हुई थी, and they are Canadian citizens and they cannot go to India. So when we look at the big picture, it's आम लोग जो कैनेडियन पासपोर्ट होल्ड कर रहे हैं, जिन्होंने इंडिया में जाकर चाहे एक सेलिब्रेशन करनी थी या अपने हेल्थ को सही करवाना था, they are the ones who are suffering. Visas are not being issued. E-visas are not being issued. कई लोगों की शिकायत है कि they did not apply for a visa. They were waiting for the last minute because they knew that they will get the visa by e-visa within 24 hours. कई लोगों के पास OCI नहीं थी. They never thought to get OCI. But they thought कि at the time when they are making their plans to go to India, वो लोगों को कोई difficulties नहीं आएगी. But unfortunately, this is what we are facing right now. और आज का जो खबर है, 41 diplomats को वापस भेजने का या कैनेडियन सरकार को इल्तिजा करने का कि 41 diplomats जो है आपके, उनको वापस बुला लो. What is next? What are we gonna hear next? ये सवाल एक आम इंसान का है।
ਬਿਲਕੁਲ ਇੱਕ ਉਹ ਹਾਲਾਤ ਨੇ ਆਸ਼ਾ ਨਾ ਜਿਹਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਪਿਛਲੇ 16 ਦਿਨਾਂ ਤੋਂ ਹਾਲਾਤ ਜਿੱਥੇ ਸੁਧਾਰਨ ਦੀ ਉਮੀਦ ਕੀਤੀ ਜਾਂਦੀ ਸੀ ਕਿ ਦੋਵੇਂ ਦੇਸ਼ ਮਿਲ ਕੇ ਕੋਈ ਬਿਹਤਰੀਨ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਸੁਲਝਾ ਇਸ ਦਾ ਲੱਭਣਗੇ, ਪਰ ਅੱਜ ਦੀ ਅਨਾਉਂਸਮੈਂਟ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਇਹ ਜ਼ਾਹਰ ਹੋ ਗਿਆ ਕਿ ਹਾਲਾਤ ਸੁਧਰਨ ਦੀ ਬਜਾਏ ਹੋਰ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਵਿਗੜ ਸਕਦੇ ਹੈ। ਔਰ ਵਿਗੜਨ ਦੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਆਸਾਰ ਨੇ ਵੱਡੀ ਪੱਧਰ ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਨੇ। 62 ਡਿਪਲੋਮੈਟਸ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚੋਂ 50% ਡਿਪਲੋਮੈਟਸ ਨੂੰ ਵਾਪਸ ਬੁਲਾਉਣ ਦੇ ਆਦੇਸ਼ ਨੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਐਲਾਨਾਮੇ ਸਾਹਮਣੇ ਆ ਰਹੇ ਨੇ। ਯਾਦ ਰਹੇ ਕਿ ਜਦੋਂ ਦੋਵਾਂ ਦੇਸ਼ਾਂ ਦੇ ਦਰਮਿਆਨ ਇਸ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਦੇ ਹਾਲਾਤ ਖਰਾਬ ਹੁੰਦੇ ਨੇ, ਉਦੋਂ ਡਿਪਲੋਮੈਟਸ ਦੀ ਸਭ ਤੋਂ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਵੱਡੀ ਪੱਧਰ ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਕਾਰਗੁਜ਼ਾਰੀ ਹੈ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਜ਼ਰੂਰਤ ਹੁੰਦੀ ਹੈ। ਔਰ ਨਾਲ ਦੀ ਨਾਲ ਇਹ ਵੀ ਹੈ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਸਭ ਤੋਂ ਵੱਡਾ ਨੁਕਤਾ ਸਾਹਮਣੇ ਆ ਰਿਹਾ ਕਿ ਜੋ ਸਾਹਮਣੇ ਦਿਖਦਾ ਸੀ ਉਹੀ ਕਾਫੀ ਨਹੀਂ, ਬਲਕਿ ਇਹਦੇ ਪਿੱਛੇ ਹੋਰ ਵੀ ਬਹੁਤ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਵੱਡੇ ਵੱਡੇ ਕਾਰਨ ਨੇ। ਔਰ ਉਹ ਬਹੁਤ ਸਾਰੇ ਲੋਕਾਂ ਦਾ, ਜਿਹੜੇ ਬੁੱਧੀਜੀਵੀ ਲੋਕ ਨੇ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਇਹ ਕਹਿਣਾ ਕਿ ਬੜੀ ਦੇਰ ਦੀ ਆਸ਼ਾ ਨਾ ਇਹ ਸੁਲਗ ਰਹੀ ਸੀ, ਬੜੇ ਦੇਰ ਦੀ। ਬਹੁਤ ਸਾਰੇ ਲੋਕਾਂ ਦੀ ਰਾਜਨੀਤਿਕ ਜਾਂ ਨਿੱਜੀ ਮਫਾਦ ਨੂੰ ਮੁੱਖ ਰੱਖ ਕੇ ਚੱਲ ਰਹੀਆਂ ਕਾਰਗੁਜ਼ਾਰੀਆਂ ਨੇ, ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਉਹ ਰਿੱਝ ਰਹੀ ਸੀ, ਹੁਣ ਤਾਂ उबल के ही सामने है।
बिल्कुल। एक और जो बात बाहर निकली हुई है वो ये है, आज की ये ताज़ा खबर है और ये भी हमारे भारत के मीडिया ने इस बात को बाहर लाई है कि ट्रूडो एड एंड MP सुख धालीवाल स्पॉटेड एट सरी गुरुद्वारा एट द सेंटर ऑफ इंडिया कैनेडा टेंशन। और ये बताया गया है, कहते हैं कि अकॉर्डिंग टू सोर्सेज इन्हें पता चला है, अ डे आफ्टर इवेडिंग News 18's question about the alleged protection to Khalistani terror groups on Canadian soil, Sukhminder Akka Sukh Singh Taliwal, Liberal Party MP and close aide of Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, was seen at the Sari Gurdwara, which is at the center of the diplomatic tension between India and Canada. Khalistani separatist Hardeep Singh Nijjar was the president of the Gurdwara until he was shot dead outside the Sikh temple on June 18. Trudeau's explosive allegations of the potential involvement of Indian agents in the killing of Nijjar, whom India had designated as a terrorist in 2020, pulled down bilateral ties to their lowest last month. India has strongly rejected the allegations as absurd and motivated and expelled a senior Canadian diplomat in a tit-for-tat move to Ottawa's expulsions of an Indian official over the case. Sources said that Taliwal had visited the Gurdwara to seek the support of Sikhs who had arrived for a pro-Khalistani rally on Sunday from other parts of Canada and North America. So this is another question that has been asked to Sukh by the Indian media. And I really don't know whether Sukh went to the Gurdwara for any of the benefits or he went ke matha tek kar apne liye pratna karne ke liye, because it's a religious place. Anybody can go to the Gurdwara. But according to the Indian media, this is what is been said about it. And Sukh Taliwal is the right person to give the answers to this. Will Sukh Taliwal give the answer why he was at the Gurdwara yesterday?
ਬਿਲਕੁਲ ਅਸ਼ਨਾ ਇਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਨਾ ਸਾਰੇ ਕਾਸੇ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਜਵਾਬ ਦੇਣ ਦੀ ਬਜਾਏ ਵਜ਼ਾਇਤਾਂ ਦਿੱਤੀਆਂ ਜਾ ਰਹੀਆਂ ਨੇ। ਜਵਾਬ ਸਿੱਧੇ ਨਹੀਂ ਹਨ, ਇਸੇ ਕਰਕੇ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਸਾਰੀ ਗਦਲ ਚੌਲੇ ਪੈ ਰਹੀ ਹੈ। ਔਰ ਸਭ ਤੋਂ ਵੱਡੀ ਗੱਲ ਇਹ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਜਦੋਂ ਇਹੋ ਜਿਹੇ ਹਾਲਾਤ ਹੋਣ ਤਾਂ ਬੇਭਰੋਸਗੀ ਦੋਹਾਂ ਪਾਸਿਆਂ ਤੋਂ ਹੁੰਦੀ ਹੈ। ਚਾਹੇ ਭਾਰਤ ਵੱਲੋਂ ਬੇਭਰੋਸਗੀ ਹੈ ਤੇ ਚਾਹੇ ਕੈਨੇਡਾ ਵੱਲੋਂ ਬੇਭਰੋਸਗੀ ਹੈ। ਔਰ ਇਹ ਸਾਰੇ ਕਾਸੇ ਦੇ ਦਰਮਿਆਨ ਸਾਡੇ ਇਲਾਕੇ ਦੇ MP ਦੀ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਪ੍ਰੈਜ਼ੈਂਸ ਹੈ ਉਹਦਾ ਬਾਰੇ ਸਵਾਲ ਉੱਠਣੇ ਲਾਜ਼ਮੀ ਨੇ, ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਪਾਰਲੀਮੈਂਟ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਵੀ ਖੜ ਕੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਇਸ ਗੱਲ ਦਾ ਐਲਾਨਨਾਮਾ ਕੀਤਾ ਜਿਸ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਗੱਲ ਕਿਹਾ ਸੋ ਕਾਲਡ ਡੈਮੋਕ੍ਰੇਸੀ, ਜਿਹਨੂੰ ਬਹੁਤ ਸਾਰੇ ਮਨ ਨੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਸਿਸਟਮ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਯਕੀਨ ਕਰਦੇ ਆ ਇਨਸਲਟ ਲੈਂਦੇ ਆ। ਔਰ ਇਹ ਨਹੀਂ ਕਿ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਕੀ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਹੋ, ਇਹ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਕਿਸ ਪ੍ਰਕਾਰ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਹੋ। ਔਰ ਉਹ ਕੋਈ ਬਹੁਤੀ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਵਧੀਆ ਸ਼ਬਦਾਵਲੀ ਹੈ ਨਹੀਂ ਗੀ, ਨੰਬਰ 1। ਨੰਬਰ 2, ਕਿਸੇ ਵੀ ਮੀਡੀਆ ਚੈਨਲ ਵੱਲੋਂ ਪੁੱਛਿਆ ਗਿਆ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਸਵਾਲ ਹੈ, ਅਗਰ ਉਹਦਾ ਜਵਾਬ ਸਪਸ਼ਟ ਦੇ ਦਿੱਤਾ ਜਾਵੇ ਤਾਂ ਬਿਹਤਰ ਹੈ। ਅਗਰ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਮੰਬਲ ਕਰਦੇ ਹੋ ਤਾਂ ਰਿਜ਼ਲਟ ਤਾਂ ਆਪਾਂ ਸਾਡੇ ਸਾਹਮਣੇ ਹੀ ਹੈ।
Well, again, the news channel has said today that Taliwal, who had earlier mentioned that India and Canada share good ties, said Trudeau had credible information and evidence when he accused India in Parliament last month. The law enforcement agencies have enough evidence that made Trudeau make that statement. I can certainly say that Prime Minister Trudeau is very credible. When he makes a statement, he does not do without any evidence. I'm happy someone can speak for Canada, Taliwal said. The Canadian government has so far not provided any evidence after it accused India of being involved in Niger's killing despite New Delhi's insistence. When asked if there was any FIR or a suspect list from the Canadian police in this matter, Taliwal said only time will tell. At this point, I can say that the Prime Minister was given the information and he spoke. This is real leadership. The justice system in Canada is very fair. There's credible information that has made Prime Minister Trudeau say this. Dhaliwal has confirmed meeting Niger in 2019 at a time when a red corner notice (RCN) was issued against him. Dhaliwal was evasive of whether he, as an MP, alerted the government authorities about Niger when he was declared a terrorist by India in 2020. Dhaliwal was also at a loss to explain Niger's proximity with the Canadian Security Intelligence Services (CSIS) as claimed by Niger's son. He also was evasive on the interference whether the Canadian authorities were actively shielding a wanted man. There are in fact allegations that the Canadian government was protecting Niger and allowing him to run his operation that included networking, training, financing and operationalizing his Khalistan Terror Force KTF Terror module. I'm not here to defend Niger but Canada. This issue is about assassination. That is bothersome, Dhaliwal said. Or when you look at the big picture, and this news is by, again I should quote this was by the Indian media. Or one thing that Dhaliwal kept on saying was that Trudeau showed a good leadership. And that's what his motive was, that he's not supporting or he's not commenting about Niger, he's commenting about the leadership of Trudeau. And इस तरह की कई और बातें हमारे जो कनाडा के मीडिया है उसने भी कवर किया है। बहुत सारे स्टोरीज इस तरह से बाहर निकल आ रहे। We will be right back after a quick commercial break. Then we will have Yogesh Patia, the activist, community activist, जो इस बारे में और रोशनी डालेंगे। ज़रूर आते वापस कुछ व्यापारिक संदेशों के बाद।
ओहो रात ਦੇ 2 ਵੱਜ ਗਏ ਭੁੱਖ ਨਾਲ ਢਿੱਡ 'ਚ ਚੂਹੇ ਦੌੜਦੇ ਨੇ।
ਚੱਲ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਵੀ ਖਿਲਾ ਪਿਲਾ ਦਿੰਨੇ ਆ। ਪਾਇਲ ਬਿਜ਼ਨਸ ਸੈਂਟਰ 'ਚ ਪਾਇਲ ਚਾਟ ਹਾਊਸ 24 ਆਵਰ ਖੁੱਲਦੇ ਨੇ। ਸਵੇਰੇ 4 ਵਜੇ ਤੋਂ ਲੈ ਕੇ 11 ਵਜੇ ਤੱਕ ਹਰ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਦੇ ਪਰੌਂਠਿਆਂ ਦਾ ਮਾਣੋ ਆਨੰਦ। ਬਾਕੀ 24 ਘੰਟੇ ਹਰ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਦੇ ਤੰਦੂਰੀ ਵੈਜ ਨਾਨ ਵੈਜ ਖਾਣੇ ਆਰਡਰ ਕਰੋ ਜਾਂ ਫਿਰ ਬੈਠ ਕੇ ਖਾਓ। 6045961990।
ਪਾਇਲ ਚਾਟ ਹਾਊਸ ਆਉਣ ਲੱਗੇ ਬਿੱਟੂ ਲਈ ਗੋਟ ਮੀਟ ਵੀ ਲੈ ਆਵਾਂਗੇ।
ਹੋਰ ਤਾਂ ਹੋਰ ਪਾਰਟ ਤੇ 100 ਬੰਦੇ ਤੱਕ ਦੀ ਕੇਟਰਿੰਗ ਘਰ ਜਾ ਕੇ ਤੰਦੂਰ ਲਾ ਕੇ ਕਰਦੇ ਨੇ। ਅੱਜ ਹੀ ਕਰੋ ਕੇਟਰਿੰਗ ਬੁੱਕ 6045187444 ਪਾਇਲ ਚਾਟ ਹਾਊਸ।
ਪਲਾਨ ਇੰਸ਼ੋਰੈਂਸ ਕੋਲੋਂ ਲੋ ਲਾਈਫ ਇੰਸ਼ੋਰੈਂਸ ਤੇ ਸੁਪਰ ਵੀਜ਼ਾ ਇੰਸ਼ੋਰੈਂਸ ਦੀਆਂ ਬੈਸਟ ਆਪਸ਼ਨਸ। ਇੱਕ ਕਲੇਮ ਆਉਣ ਦੀ ਸੂਰਤ ਵਿੱਚ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਸਟੈਪ ਬਾय ਸਟੈਪ ਗਾਈਡ ਵੀ ਕਰਦੇ ਹਾਂ। ਜੇ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਵਿਜ਼ਿਟਰ ਜਾਂ ਸੁਪਰ ਵੀਜ਼ਾ ਇੰਸ਼ੋਰੈਂਸ ਦਾ ਕੋਟ ਲੈਣਾ ਹੈ ਤਾਂ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਸਿਰਫ ਵਿਜ਼ਿਟਰ ਦੇ ਏਜ ਟੈਕਸ ਕਰੋ 6043632200 ਤੇ ਇਹ ਮਿੰਟਾਂ ਵਿੱਚ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਸਾਰੀਆਂ ਮੇਜਰ ਕੰਪਨੀਆਂ ਦੇ ਕੋਟ ਭੇਜ ਦੇਣਗੇ। ਇਹ BC ਅਲਬਰਟਾ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਟੋਰਾਂਟੋ ਵਿੱਚ ਵੀ ਸਰਵਿਸ ਪ੍ਰੋਵਾਈਡ ਕਰਵਾਉਂਦੇ ਹਾਂ। ਸਹੀ ਇੰਸ਼ੋਰੈਂਸ ਪਲਾਨ ਡਿਜ਼ਾਈਨ ਕਰਵਾਉਣ ਲਈ ਕਾਲ ਕਰੋ ਪਲਾਨ ਇੰਸ਼ੋਰੈਂਸ ਦੇ ਅਮਰਿੰਦਰ ਨੱਡਾ ਨੂੰ 6043632200 6043632200 or visit planinsurance.ca।
ਮਿੱਤਰਾਂ ਦੇ ਫੰਕਸ਼ਨ ਤੇ ਰਾਤੀ ਲੱਗੀਆਂ ਮਹਿਫਲਾਂ ਰਿਫਲੈਕਸ਼ਨ ਬੈਂਕਟ ਹਾਲ ਤੇ ਨਾਰੇ।
Reflection Banquet and Convention Center, a new and best hall in Surrey. Modern, elegant, top class, big patios के साथ, best food, lots of variety. You want to give the best to your guests? Party book करो Reflection Banquet and Convention Center ते 604-618-5114 6638-152 A Street, Surrey. Reflection Banquet and Convention Center.
ਘਰ ਖਰੀਦਣਾ ਚਾਹੁੰਦੇ ਹੋ ਜਾਂ ਘਰ ਵੇਚਣਾ ਚਾਹੁੰਦੇ ਹੋ? ਫਾਈਨ ਪ੍ਰਿੰਟਸ ਨੂੰ ਪੜ੍ਹਨਾ ਤੇ ਸਮਝਣਾ ਅਤਿਅੰਤ ਜ਼ਰੂਰੀ ਹੈ।
ये सिर्फ और सिर्फ भरोसेमंद रियल्टर ही कर सकते हैं। घर बेचन दा मन बनाया या घर खरीदना चाहते हो, सही ते भरोसेयोग सलाह दे लई कॉल करो 30 साल दा तजुर्बा रखन वाली रियल्टर कुलजीत कौर नू। SRS Panorama Realty 6047679992 6047679992 ਕੁਲਜੀਤ ਕੌਰ।
ਐਕਸਪ੍ਰੈਸ ਐਂਟਰੀ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ PR ਲਈ ਅਪਲਾਈ ਕਰਨਾ ਹੈ ਤਾਂ ਆਈਡੀਆ ਇਮੀਗ੍ਰੇਸ਼ਨ ਦੇ ਨਵਨੀਤ ਸ਼ਰਮਾ ਜੀ ਨੂੰ ਕਰੋ ਕਾਲ 6045971119 ਤੇ। BC ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ PNP ਜਾਂ ਫਿਰ ਸਸਕੈਚੁਅਨ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ SINP ਦੇ ਲਈ ਗਾਈਡੈਂਸ ਦੀ ਲੋੜ ਹੈ। ਸਟੂਡੈਂਟਸ ਨੇ ਐਪਲੀਕੇਸ਼ਨ ਫਾਈਲ ਕਰਨੀ ਹੈ। ਸਟੱਡੀ ਵੀਜ਼ਾ, ਵਰਕ ਪਰਮਿਟ, ਮੈਰਿਜ, LMIA ਐਪਲੀਕੇਸ਼ਨ, ਓਨਰ ਆਪਰੇਟਰ ਜਾਂ ਫਿਰ ਇਨਵੈਸਟਮੈਂਟ ਐਪਲੀਕੇਸ਼ਨ, ਕੇਅਰ ਗਿਵਰ ਨੈਨੀ ਪ੍ਰੋਗਰਾਮ ਦੇ ਲਈ ਅਪਲਾਈ ਕਰਨ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਮਦਦ ਕਰਦੇ ਨੇ। ਆਈਡੀਆ ਇਮੀਗ੍ਰੇਸ਼ਨ ਦੇ ਦਫ਼ਤਰ ਸਰੀ ਕਲੋਨਾ ਤੇ ਰਜ਼ਾਈਨਾ ਵਿਖੇ ਨੇ। ਸਰੀ ਦਾ ਦਫ਼ਤਰ ਯਾਰਕ ਸੈਂਟਰ ਵਿਖੇ ਯੂਨਿਟ ਨੰਬਰ 2097928 ਸਟਰੀਟ 6045971119 ਆਈਡੀਆ ਇਮੀਗ੍ਰੇਸ਼ਨ।
ਘਰ ਦਾ ਪਲਾਨ ਤੇ ਬਣ ਗਿਆ, ਟੂਟੀਆਂ ਤੇ ਟੱਬ ਕਿੱਥੋਂ ਲੈਣੇ ਆ ਸ਼ੇਰਿਆ?
ਸਰਦਾਰ ਨਾਰਥ ਅਮਰੀਕਾ ਦਾ ਸਭ ਤੋਂ ਵੱਡਾ ਤੇ ਸਭ ਤੋਂ ਸੋਹਣਾ ਸ਼ੋਰੂਮ ਹੈ HD ਪ੍ਰੋਡਕਟ। ਇਹ ਤਾਂ ਬਿਨਾਂ ਕਿਤੇ ਹੋਰ ਗੱਲ ਨਹੀਂ ਬਣਨੀ।
ਕਮਾਓ ਏ ਫੋਨ 60423195